Hi, friends. Welcome back to my channel. So happy to be here with you. Just want to share an awareness, an evolution of my belief system and how they evolved and how I moved from structural religion into my relationship with the divine creator. And it was an evolution because for a long time I was stuck. I felt I didn't know who I was in God's eyes. And so when I started my healing journey and asked and cried out, that I said in the previous video, when I started my healing journey, I didn't know who I was. I knew there was a higher power. I knew within me I was loved by our higher power. I just didn't know where I stood. I knew there was a God. I didn't know my relationship. And looking back at my journey thus far, that's part of my lived experience is to understand the life experiences I go through and they evolve. And I will continue to have life journeys and life experiences until I return home to spirit. And reflecting on, we are all born into a condition, right? It's our parents' condition that they already established. So when I was born, 1974, I was born into a Jehovah Witness household. And throughout my life, until I was in my 30s, would reflect back on that teaching, that structured religion. But in the beginning, I was born into it. It wasn't a choice that I had. And throughout my life, different teachings have came in my life. So I always felt like I was not good enough to be in a structure because I always dipped in and out. It never was able, like, this is where I belong. So I always felt separated when it came to structured teachings in religion and cultures. And so I'm going to start from the beginning. Like I said, I was born into a Jehovah Witness household, and my grandparents raised their family, my mother in that religion. And my earliest memory of this religion was very hypocritical. And I could remember going to church, and it was very strict, and there was a lot of separation. I remember there was a room in the back where they would put the people that were like on punishment. And I didn't understand that. I was told I had to do Bible study, and we would have a person from the congregation come to our house, and we would sit as children and listen to these Bible stories. And I'm laughing because there was times where the lady who taught us for years would get so mad at me because I would be like, I have a question. And I remember one question I asked her was about Jesus. And she's like, Gracie, you have to listen to the story. And I'm like, I am. And I remember there was a part where she went after our Bible study. And because I asked so many questions, that she told my mother that I needed to stop asking questions and to just know what she was teaching was the truth. So I was told very sternly to stop asking questions. At 8 years old, 9 years old, you do what you're told. And I remember sitting there and looking at these pictures and just questioning it in my mind, but not able to ask those questions. And being a child, doing what you're told and going to church, there was a very lot of rules that we couldn't do as children. We couldn't celebrate birthdays, we couldn't celebrate holidays, we couldn't pledge allegiance to the flag. all these rules. And I've always wanted to fit in. It was just like, but I knew I couldn't because I was being taught this one structure. And if I didn't follow those structures, the other kids in my class would go tell on me and I would get in trouble. And it was so frustrating because it caused separation again. And I remember going to church as a kid and not speaking, but being confused because all these rules, and we're going to church, we're all dressed up, having to be show face of being perfect. The drinking, the fighting, the stuff that we were told not to. So there was a lot of hypocrisy. Is it that's what it's called? Hypocrisy. And it was confusing. Long story short, left home and didn't understand that I had a family member who was baptized in this religion, and she did something that wasn't okay with the church. So they disfellowshipped her. And watching that happen as a young girl, how they shun her and put her in the back room, it made me very confused. I would sit back there with her and they always try to get me out of that room, but I'm like, no, this is my person and I'm going to sit with them. So that was my first experience, my first lived experience of the understanding of God. And there was so much teaching in that that made me fear that I was not loved by God. So throughout my adolescent years and teenage years and that lived experience, I did not think God loved me, even though part of my teaching was God loves you because you are God's child, this and that. But if you don't follow these rules, you're a sinner, this and that. So going through life, I didn't think I was loved, to put it plain and simple. So that led to a lot of fear mindset that I didn't realize at the time were placed and planted, that seed planted. And and then when I had my daughter at a very young age, her father was Catholic, going from a Jehovah Witness household, leaving there at a very young age. I was still in my teens, having my daughter in my teens, and then having their Catholic family saying, we have to baptize this child to be loved and saved by God. And I'm like, wait, what? So I remember going to a Catholic church, talking to the priest, and them talking to the priest saying that they wanted to baptize my daughter. And I remember the priest looking at us very judgmental because we were teenagers and saying that we had to do school, oh my goodness, for almost 6 months because I didn't know anything about the Catholic religion, and that was not okay. And so I started asking questions every time I went to church because they want me to remember these prayers, and we had to pay and just repent and to be accepted, to accept my child with their God. I had to confess and do all this stuff. And I'm like asking, who do I confess to? And they're like, to me. I'm like, well, you're not God. And it was to the point where, once again, the priest told at the time, the baby's daddy's father, that was paying him every time we went to church, that I need to stop asking questions. So I did. And we were able to baptize my daughter, even though I didn't understand it, but I wasn't in a place to question it. So that was the second structured religion I went through, and I was just like, okay. And there was great teachings of understanding of Mother Mary, and I was just curious, right? But they couldn't answer the questions I was asking. And I felt that I was frustrating them, and they looked at me very sinfully because I was questioning my curiosity. And then I met my husband. I left, obviously, left the my baby's, my first daughter's father, and still very entwined with my family, going once a year with my grandfather to memorial. And that's his church on the rising of Jesus. They call it the rebirth, and honoring that, even though every day but that day I was living to their accordance a sinful life. I was not married and doing all that stuff. So met my husband now, been with him since I was 17, and he wasn't raised in any religion because he is a indigenous man, and they were just not into church because of all the colonizing and their lived experience. So when he met me, it was just like, wait, what? And I was the same way. I'm like, wait, you guys don't go to church? Then what do you guys believe in? It was that curiosity, right? The difference was they were able to answer some of my questions, like how they honor the Great Spirit and Mother Earth and their belief systems. It was so intriguing. It was just like, I was captivated, but there was things there also that had me question. And I remember questioning a couple of things that was being told to me, and having a close family member tell me, you don't question that. That's a powerful medicine person. And I'm like, okay, just because it's not my culture, it's not my awareness, I took it for face value, but my discernment was telling me otherwise. But I didn't understand it at the time. And long story short, when me and my husband were about to get married, so my family are Jehovah Witness. His father's side were Catholic, and his indigenous side was no religion. And I remember our both grandparents would not, when we were planning our marriage, like, we will not go in the Catholic church. They would not go in the Jehovah Witness church. So we had to find a non-denominational place to get married. So we did. So that led to a life of so many avenues, and feeling like for me, it was like, why can't I find a place where I feel where I fit in? To be honest, it was so much scarcity and fear that led me to my healing journey. And when I started my healing journey, and I cried out to God, if you say you love me, I am your child. I need you. I need to know who I am in you. And when you ask, when they say, there's many teachings, and they all of them say, you ask and you shall receive. And that exactly what happened for me, but not in a structured dogma, not in a structured religion, not in a community or a culture way. It was my way of connecting. And I knew that I needed to rediscover that for myself. And that day I cried out to God. I went downstairs and turned on the TV, and I ran into Joel Osteen, one of his broadcasts. He said something that, and he said, God heard you crying and you are his child and he loves you. So I listened to Joel Osteen. Like I knew I didn't want to go to church because I felt church for me. I did that most of my life and it always made me feel not good enough. It made me feel separated. And I knew in my heart that wasn't for me. I wanted to know through my own interpretation by listening to teachings and coming back to myself and saying, okay, what does this mean for me? I didn't like to be bottle fed, and I still don't like to be bottle fed. So started listening to Joel Osteen for a while and really understanding and contemplating on what he said, taking what resonated, leaving what doesn't. And at the time, I didn't have a Christian book. I had a Jehovah Witness book. I had my husband's book, which his grandmother gave him, was a Roman Catholic Bible. And those were the two Bibles. I stayed with those two books. I was thinking, because I didn't order a book until I started listening to Joyce Myers. And that's Joel Osteen led me to Joyce Myers. And she's one of the teachers that I will always give credit to because when I heard her speak, that led me to her, that made me want to listen to her teachings and her story, was the first time I ever heard any pastor, preacher, priest talk about their lived experience without shame. And her story reflected my story. And I bawled. I literally bawled forever. And I was like, wow, this woman has courage. And she's saying God still loves her after all that. I wanted more of it because my lived experience made me feel separated from God, that those experiences, God did not love me. But this lady here is telling me, despite all that, God still loves you. So I wanted more, but I knew I didn't want to go to church. And I knew my Bibles weren't going to reflect. So I ordered a Christian Bible, right? And so I did. But what was great about her teaching and what I love about her teaching, and I still do, even though I don't associate with a certain religion, I just love teachers. What I love about her teaching is she doesn't put you in a mold. She wants you to teach, she wants you to learn. This is what I got from it, and this is where I am today, is finding your own truth in what you are building. So 2 years in of reading and listening to her teachings and sitting in contemplation, who is God within me, and asking God to show his light in my life, started my healing journey, like truly started my healing journey. And it started evolving. And, there was part of me where I did feel forgiveness and liberation, but there was still part of me that was still stuck in that fear. And when I started my healing journey simultaneously, at the same time as I was learning who God was in my life, there was still blocks that I wasn't allowing God's light to shine. So I started doing energy work with a Reiki practitioner. And through that experience, those sessions, I started feeling spirit in a different way. And which kind of shook me because I felt spirit throughout my whole life, but was told that it was sin, evil, it was negative. We don't communicate with the world of spirit. So there was this fear mindset, right? And where I was and understanding the teachings that I was listening to, building my own relationship. Two spirits came to me, which to this day still blow my mind. The first spirit was Mother Mary, and that essence was so loving in a way I've never been loved before. And I was unsure if that's what I was feeling because I was still building up my awareness, my connection. But I trusted it. There was this inner knowing that this essence I was feeling, this presence I was feeling was Mother Mary. And she was bringing healing because I had so many wounds around the mother wound. And she helped me start healing that. And it opened up a new awareness. And Jesus came to me, and I wanted to understand because I was reading what the Bible said. And when I would sit in contemplation and meditation after reading those words, I wanted to connect and build my relationship with Jesus, that Christ-like light, right? The teachings he has brought me has changed so many misconceptions and led me to trusting my abilities. I didn't realize the healing that was happening by connecting and building that relationship. And it still is unfolding. The teachings keep coming because I do sit back in that contemplation with Jesus's energy, the Christ energy. It's an energy that we all have. And that led me to the angels. I cried out to God again because I'm like, that's the fear is still there. Ask God, if this is not your light, I don't want it. If this is not your gift, I don't want it because my lived experience in the past brought a lot of fear in it. But I saw my guardian angel, and that awareness came, that inner knowing came, it was safe. And I continue to just build that connection and ask, who am I in God's eyes? Who am I in Creator's eyes? And that's what opened and changed my belief system. And where I'm at today is knowing those structures taught me so much discernment. They brought me so much awareness of it's okay to have structure religion to inspire you, to bring discernment, but not for me. This is my truth, is be curious, ask the questions, question someone else's interpretation because it's their interpretation. And I remember when I started developing my spiritual abilities, I, or even before, I'm like trying to think of the timeline. And I used to say, when we get to heaven, God is not going to have this area is for Christians and this area is for Catholics and this area is for Pentecostals. It's not divided. And I didn't understand that at the time until I started developing and started building my awareness that there is no separation in the world of spirits. There is no special aisle for each category. We're here to evolve through different teachings and learnings and find your way back to the divinity, right? To your liberation of the divinity. And some of that, those teachings can block us if we allow it to. And I allowed it to for a long time. And it's okay. And that's where the forgiveness and grace comes in, and building your relationship with your higher power, whether you call God or creator, divine source. There's different names, but names shouldn't separate the essence of God, of our creator, our divine creator and divine creation. And it's through your truth that you will discover what your relationship is. And it's always evolving. It's a relationship that will continue to evolve and strengthen and bring new awareness. And I'm able to share that now, because for a long time, that was a area of my life. I was like, you don't want to talk about politics and religion to people. When we share our lived experience, and this is just my truth, my understanding, it doesn't mean it's the way. This is my way of looking back in my life experiences that kept me separated, kept me trapped or imprisoned in my fears of different people's teachings. That was their interpretation. And I consciously and unconsciously kept myself imprisoned in that belief system until I started really asking the questions within myself to be okay with my awareness and honoring other people's truths, knowing that our differences are the way we build our relationships, the way we connect with our divine source is our unique way. And who am I to say what's right or wrong for your evolution of life? Back to the divinity, right? And I say divinity because it's the divine masculine and divine feminine, creator and creation. And that's a whole different story that has been coming through too, a new awareness of the separation of the divine mother, right? You can't have the divine father without the divine mother. But I'll talk about that on another video. So, yeah, that's how I moved from religion to relationship with my higher power, with spirit, and it will continue to evolve. It's that relationship that continues to build and giving that opportunity to grow. It's like with every relationship, it will always evolve and grow and shift and turn. This is just where I'm at with the world of spirit, with our creator, is who am I and how am I here to reflect your essence and your love? There's no fear that I'm not loved. There's no fear that I'm being rejected, because I sit and build that relationship. That's just my truth and my lived experience. Yeah, I'm excited to continue to grow and learn and evolve and come back and be like, hey, this is where I'm at now. And that's the beauty of sharing our stories. It inspires each other to look at your belief system. Sometimes we look back and we don't want to release because it's attached to our family line and we don't want to not honor that. But if it's not honoring yourself, how can you honor that? That's just where I'm at, because I walked that walk and I felt stuck. I felt, like I said, I felt unloved because I was honoring someone else's belief system. And I was very mad about it, to be honest. I was very mad at God. I was mad at this, at the Jehovah Witnesses. I was mad at Catholics. I was mad at Christian. I was mad because it was like, why is this bringing so much trauma to the world? And I had to pull myself back in that awareness and ask those questions. Like, how can I see this through the lens of love? How can I see this through the lens of my angels? When I asked that question, they brought me back to humanity. When we teach, when we speak, when we share, It's through our lived experience. So this movie theater, this projection of all these times I have sat in church and listening to the first lady who's reading the Bible story to me, and her telling me I can't ask questions because her truth is what is the truth through her perception. I was just like mind blown, because it was like, I don't have the answers for why people do what they do, but I know through my lived experiences and watching different leaderships in all structures project their truth as the truth, and how many times it has hurt. So when my team brought that perspection into me, it gave me room to forgive, to be like, remember, it's like, oh, we are all human. And this has been the way it's been. And this doesn't excuse the behavior, but it releases you from the trauma of it. It's theirs to carry. We have choices to pivot and to release it. It's not easy. There's traumas that I'm still healing from it. But when you look at it in a different lens and ask divine source to help you see it in a different, to bring healing, and it happens, you get to see it in a different way. There's great teachings in all belief systems. I truly believe that. But it's not all the truth, right? It's what's in each belief system. Inspire me to figure out, why did that teaching inspire me? Or song. Like, I'm listening to different mantras that is in like Indian words. And I'm like, why is this resonating with me? Because there's something, your inner knowing gets reawakened, and then you follow that inspiration. And I think that's what's so beautiful about discovering and listening to different teachings. And some don't, and that's okay, because there's many teachers that have walked this path in this lifetime before our lifetimes, right? We have Buddha, we have Ramakrishna, we have Aurobindo, we have Mother Teresa, we have Teresa of Avila, we have Jesus. There's so many through different teachings that has come to this planet to teach us in this lifetime, in these lifetimes, to not this lifetime, right? I'm like, it's not my lifetime, but the teachings that the great teachers have come here, and the similarities of it. But because they're from different parts of the world, the teachings is going to be different. And doesn't mean one way is right or one way is wrong. It means it's their way, and they're here to spread the word, to inspire, to build, to remind yourself who you are. And it's finding those teachings. Yeah, it does bring gratification to you when you sit with yourself and love yourself to explore what inspires you. The reason why I got the courage to talk about this is because I've been in this energy of healing, and there's this saying where when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And the teacher doesn't mean have to be a person. It could be a conversation, a book. And for me, it's a book. I'm reading a book right now that has me like, holy moly, okay, this is not me making this shit up. And I have been validated through different teachings, and it's bringing different awareness of what separation means, and why I need to come back to the divine feminine, the divine mother, and understanding that. And I can't wait to talk about that, because it has been an evolution of that, um, and has been evolving more. And it's brought some clarity to me where I am confident now to talk about these lived experiences that kept me trapped in fear, but seeing it in a different perspective. So, my invitation for you is always honor your truth. Thank you for listening to my truth and my journey from moving from religion to relationship in my journey thus far. And I continue to evolve and build my relationship with our divine source. So, thank you. I'm sending you so much love, and I will be talking to you soon.